And it just started off with me saying like, yeah, I don't think it'll be super popular. It's for Roku only. And someone in the comments was like, were y'all talking about the Daniel Radcliffe Weird Al movie?
They called it?
Yeah, but all I said was, I don't think it'll be popular because it's on Roku only. But that they like me, probably the only time they ever heard of a Roku only movie was this, because it's frequently in the headlines. So
there you go.
Yeah, they picked up on it.
I mean, if it's in the headlines, then that means more people are becoming aware of it.
That's true. Do you have a Roku in the house?
No.
I don't.
We have Apple TV.
We have one up in the guest room, which is just like the old thing that we had, and it just moved up into the guest room for the one time someone visited.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Are you recording?
Yeah, I'm recording both.
Cool.
I'm recording all over the place.
All right. Nice.
Yeah.
Better clean up afterwards.
I will. There's just recordings everywhere now.
I'm just recording all over the place.
There's recordings on the wall.
Oh, gosh.
I still have damage in my ceiling from where I swatted dots that were hanging from the drop panel. And I kind of like pulled out some chunks of the drop panel when I swatted them.
Wow. Well, you were very impassioned at the moment, so it's understandable.
I was.
All right.
Yes. A lot of emotions.
Right. Oh, yeah. Let me pull up my notes. That might help. Okay.
I went hard copy.
Oh, look at you killing trees.
Well, yeah. I
just finished my notes 30 seconds ago, so I didn't have time to print anything.
Oh yeah, so this a lot of this is gonna be a mystery to me. I don't know what you're gonna say.
Oh good. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't update it since you printed it probably. All right.
Who knows?
Let's get into it, shall we? All right.
We'll get into all of it.
Yeah. Welcome everybody to episode number 32 of the Goulet Pencast, where fountain pens are still a thing. I am Brian Goulet.
And I am Drew Brown.
Yeah, you are. And we are here from Goulet Pens to deliver this casual and informal, tangential and extraneous, superfluous and extemporaneous fountain pen show, where we talk about what's going on at the Goulet Pen Company and in our fountain pen lives. I wanted to say superfluous too early. Too early, Drew. I jumped in there, but what are you going to do? I've only done this 32 times. In today's show, we're going to talk about workplace appropriate ink colors, which pens that we feel are legendary, and Goulet branded pens? ?
Ooh. Clickbait.
So, clickbait indeed.
All right, we're going to get started with some feedback, Brian, and we got a lot of feedback about the Platinum 3776, the Century 3776 Century,
because it didn't always used to be Century. It was one time not Century.
Really?
Yeah,
they had to hit that. They had to hit that mark.
Well, they changed it. No, that's not why. They did hit the Century mark as a company, but no, it's because they changed when they did the slip and seal cap design. This was 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, somewhere around there.
Oh.
They used to have a slightly different, like center band. They changed up the ornamentation a little bit on the pen, and they added the slip and seal cap, and it became the 3776 Century.
Oh.
So yeah, I'll have to bust that out one day. I have one of the old 3776s pre-Century.
Pre-slip and seal. Pre-slippery.
Pre-slip and seal. It's
right.
just whatever the opposite of slip and seal is. Just
regular.
Grip and loose. Grip and open. I don't know.
Grip and clip.
Anyway,
All right,
we have feedback, don't we?
Yeah, we did get feedback, and we got a lot of really positive feedback. A lot of folks really, really love this 3776, and there was no distaste for it. Look at that. Wake up and smell the coffee. Nice. No real distaste for it. A lot of people said 3776 is my favorite pen. I love it. But it was mixed. There were a lot of people that said, hey, I tried it. I actually bought 2 in some cases, and it just is not my jam. It's a little too rigid. I don't like the feel of it. I don't know why I would choose this over Pilot. And that's kind of where I'm at. Like, no complaints about it. But compared to the other pens that are in that zone, I would pick other pens. And that was the consensus. Nothing negative about it. Didn't seem like anybody had an outright negative experience with the 3776. Just
exactly
a preferential thing.
It's like cars, right? Like, with some exception, most modern cars are all going to be a pretty good experience, right? But it's like some handle a little tighter, some a little looser, and
Exactly.
it's not that one's better than the other. It's just a matter of preference. I think it's the same kind of thing when you get to, especially pens of this level of quality, consistencies there. It's just a matter of preference.
For sure. And then Dan wrote in to say, I have to say that I look forward to these videos on Friday. After a long work week, you two are like hanging out with some old friends. We feel the same, Dan. Thank you. I learned something and enjoy the banter, so thanks for that. This week's was even better since there was a Rachel sighting. So glad to see her again. Keep up the great works, and thanks for making the end of the week so relaxing. Thank you, Dan.
Absolutely.
And I would like to say that when we turn on the recording, it does feel different. We do feel like we are instantly, and we're not with anybody right now. We're recording this in advance of when you're seeing it. But I don't know about you, Brian, but for me, I definitely feel like something changes because I do feel like I am all of a sudden with people. So it goes both ways. Like I feel it. I do, and I like it. So thank you for showing up every week. Thank you for showing up your first week if it's your first time, but we do appreciate it. And it definitely is a feeling of friendship and camaraderie here that we just love.
Absolutely.
And wrapping things up on my end, Keith emailed to say, or YouTubed to say, first thing my wife asked me when she got home from work today was, have the chaps done a video? Followed quite a bit later by, how was your day? So Keith
got her priorities right.
Yeah, Keith mentioned like, well, I know where I am in the pecking order. So the chaps will have done a video by the time you're hearing this, Keith. So thank you and your wife. Keith also joined a few commenters on YouTube in finishing up the lyrics to Every Rose Has Its Thorn, which is a new Sailor pen. And we didn't specifically reference any of the lyrical nods, hints, or winks to that one, but there were definitely quite a few in the comments. And there was also a mention that Every Night Has Its Dawn could be a sequel follow-up to Sailor's Pen, which I appreciated because...
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
I thought that was
we'll have to pass that along.
Yeah. So I like that. Well done, everybody.
That's fantastic. Yeah. I got some feedback as well. This one's from Jonathan. I have never even heard of a boogie board to take quick notes, and as a sieve brain, there's probably a German word for this term as well. I have tried nearly everything. This brings me to my question. We got a question in the feedback here.
Yeah,
okay.
I put this one in there for you because you have more experience with this than I do.
All right. Do either of you or your colleagues successfully combine any need to use productivity software for task or project management with the passion for writing with fountain pens? I received a lovely Rodeo web planner for the holidays from Goulet Pens, but also need digital prompting to keep me from derailing. Not looking for a Verschlimmbesserung moment, though. P.S. Your webcasts are bright spots in my life right now. As a healthcare provider, you guys are rocking this. Well, thank you, Jonathan. You are a champion right now. You are a hero for sure.
You're rocking it.
You are rocking it. Absolutely. And if we can even help in any way, even if just to distract you from reality, I'm glad that we can be doing our part there. So combining digital and analog task management stuff. Yeah, this is definitely a thing. I think a lot of people probably that are using, planners and notebooks and stuff these days. I mean, it's kind of hard to ignore the digital aspect of our lives, if for no other reason than if you are ever collaborating or meeting or doing anything with another person in today's professional world, there's a good chance it's going to be in a digital form. So you're probably going to need to have some sort of digital calendar or something that you have to manage in addition to your analog life. So the way that I end up using it is I don't have like a specific format of notebook or planner or whatever that I will use. I go a little more kind of the open-ended, like bullet journal, loosely type of format, so that I can basically adapt, kind of my stuff into pretty much any notebook, whatever notebook that I want to use. I usually end up using like a 5mm dot grid of some kind. And I will essentially use that for my own stuff. I'm really not doing a lot of scheduling and calendar management in a paper planner personally, just because my schedule is so crazy and changes so much, both between the kids and, running carpools and, like bringing the kids to and from school, all the stuff at work and outside meetings with, video call invites and all that. Like that's got to be heavily digital. I could not manage that in a paper planner. But I think for my own like thoughts, reflections, ideas, I like putting those in a paper notebook, partly if for no other reason, because it's harder to be distracted by notifications and other things on my screen or whatever that I might have on a digital device. So I will use, the paper planner or the paper notebook or whatever, just for like writing down quick things, fleshing out some ideas, just bulleted lists of things that I will then later process. So it's kind of like brain dumping or a mind mapping type of thing that I'll use the more analog form. And then I will kind of further process it into a digital thing, mainly because just the work environment that I'm in, pretty much most of what I do involves working with other people. So it's going to end up in a digital form unless it's something that is really kind of just meant more for myself. So that's it's kind of the initial stage. I'll make an initial pass on that in my analog notebook and then transfer it to digital. But for a lot of my like to-do lists and stuff, I use a program called OmniFocus, which is somewhat popular. There's a lot of different ones. I'm testing maybe some others like ClickUp, and looked at so we use Basecamp too at Goulet Pens here. We use that to manage like our content calendar and video planning and stuff like that. We use the Google Suite as well. So we have a lot of different things that we're trying out and managing. But my personal productivity thing, the OmniFocus, has been one of the most helpful things because it syncs between my phone and the computer because I'm on different devices. I'm coming and going all the time. So that's pretty helpful. But then I always keep the notebook nearby for just those my own personal thoughts and stuff. And that seems to have worked pretty well for me. I've settled into that as kind of a rhythm over the years. How about you, Drew? Do you use like a blend of
No. I was mainly just thinking, you could mention OmniFocus or something like that. No, I just now Google Calendar, notebooks, boogie board.
I'll say, David Allen wrote a book called Getting Things Done. Highly recommend it. It's not specific to any one platform. It's more just an approach or a methodology around personal organization that can translate to digital or analog. And that was one of the most influential things in my own personal productivity that I've read. And OmniFocus is built heavily off of the methodology that's around that book. So I recommend you check that one out. All right. And then Craig has a little education for us. Looks like Craig Googled French drains and found the Wikipedia page, which I'm now realizing we easily could have done, but didn't. But anyway, Craig's done it for us. Thank you, Craig. French drains were made popular by a guy named Henry Flagg French, born 1813 and passed away in 1885 in Concord, Massachusetts. He was a lawyer and an assistant U.S. Treasury Secretary. He described and popularized them in his book Farm Drainage in 1859. Drew, when's the last time you think a U.S. Treasury Secretary wrote a book about farm drainage?
Far too long.
Probably Henry Flagg French was the last one. Anyway, so he said, thanks, Wikipedia. Also, chain chomp. Nice. Craig watched till the end.
Yeah, thank you, Craig.
There you go, French drains. So it has nothing to do with the country of France. It has to do with Mr. French. Well, thank you, Mr. French. Thank you for your service to our treasury, as well as writing a book about farm drainage. That is a diverse set of skills right there. Props.
That's pretty amazing.
We're going to head on to our next segment of new stuff. All right, so let's check out some of the new things that we have and things that are coming soon. Kicking it off, we got the Maiora Libertà Tondo Doni. I said that right? I always want to say Dondo Tony. They sound so similar. It's like when you don't really know how to pronounce something, you're like, well, D and T sounds similar enough. I'll just say like Dondo Tony, and you won't really know which one I said which way.
There you go.
It's like the Laurel and Yanni thing. Remember that was real big a few years ago?
Oh,
and
right.
It was like some people heard Laurel, some people heard Yanni.
Yeah, that was dumb.
Yeah, sometimes you got to do that when you don't know how to pronounce something.
Yeah, that was so weird. It came right on the heels of that whole blue dress, white dress thing.
Yeah. It was around the same time. That was weird. That was a weird time for American society. It's a strange time in the world. Yeah, I'm glad things are so much more normal now, than they were back then.
I know. I miss the Yanni days.
Yeah, right. I miss when that was what made news. Anyway, What are we talking about? Mayora. Okay,
Bondo,
anyway,
Bondo phony.
So these are going to be super, super limited. Only a few of them made in the world. What, 18 worldwide, something like that? It's very, very, very few of them. But you can go check it out. We got that on the site right now. And then Sailor has some of their ebonite sculpture pens. So we launched that this week. And yeah, these are really, really cool looking. We got the Yogazumi, which is Night Haze. That's been sandblasted, bead blasted, finish for a rough texture. It just looks so dang good. It looks really, really sharp. And it's got a different cap too. You know what I mean? It's like you're pretty much familiar with the Pro Gear. You're pretty much familiar with the 1911. And that's pretty much what you expect. But, you know, if you remember the anniversary pen that they had not too long ago had that interesting like flat top with the roll stop on it. It's got that vibe to it. So pretty neat. Nice to see them
not the
mixing
size
them.
of an actual telephone pole.
Well, you know, it was pretty sizely. It had some
Sizely.
You know, it was sizely. Yeah, there was size happening on that anniversary pen.
It was huge.
Yeah. And then got a couple other ones. Yako, which is Nightlight. That's a diamond cut sculpture with layers of circles in it. So yeah, go check that out. I can't really describe it very well. And then Yokaz.
Nailed it.
Yokaze? Do you say the E? Yokaze. Yokaze.
With Japanese pronunciations, it's a lot about the pacing, like how fast you say certain syllables. So I can't say.
Yeah, I'm butchering it for sure. My apologies, but night.
I mean, they probably say something quickly like yokaze or something. You know,
yokaze. Yeah,
but I have no idea. I just
that's okay. We're the blind.
It's the speed and pacing and like how long you hold certain words. But it's always wrong when it comes out of my mouth, so I'm not gonna.
Okay, fair enough. But it's engraved with vertical lines. It's really cool. These are just not your typical Sailor pens. These are gonna be $792, which is, you know, definitely an investment, but for how interesting and the technique that there are for these pens, you just don't see pens like this pretty much anywhere. So very,
and it's
very
not
excited
every
to be able
day
to
that
offer these.
Sailor does something in ebonite either. They had that ebonite.
No, not at all.
They had the ebonite Naginata Togi.
Yep.
But that was a huge deal. That's not something that comes around, you know.
I mean, that was the first ebonite pen that we had since we picked up Sailor nearly 2 years ago at this point. So yeah, pretty cool. Interesting to see them coming out with some new stuff. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, these are really cool.
Yeah.
Also, last week, Esterbrook came out with a new JR, their J Reborn series, which is a pocket pen more or less. It's a larger pocket pen, but still counts. And they came out with this gorgeous blue resin that has like I don't know if it's gold or silver glitter inside, but it's a beautiful sparkly gold situation happening in a Esterbrook JR with gold trim. It's a beautiful, beautiful pen. It's limited. I don't know how long it's going to be around, but check it out. If pocket pens are your jam, this is a really, really nice one to check out. Esterbrook also came out with another book holder. I have the nib book holder, which we had already carried, and I use it all the time. It keeps unruly books open if they're not laying flat. The B is even better because it has like a wider coverage, with the wings and stuff like that. And it looks stunning as well. They had a B available. It was like, kind of this color, the bronzy color, but the one that just launched is a rose, kind of like a rosy metal looking, rose brass or something like that. But it's a really good looking book holder, and it'll take care of any book that isn't beehiving for you. So
and props to Drew. Drew advocated for that. We were like, I don't know, Drew, it's not a pen. It's not a pen, really. And he was like, no, trust me, just do it.
It's helpful. It really is helpful.
People like it. So we'll see. If you don't like it, you think it's stupid, just know that it's all Drew's fault, and he should get all the blame.
Huh. All right. Well,
but he should also get all the credit if you really like it. So that's how it works. You get both ways. Accountability, Drew.
Sure.
That's what it's all about. I'm just kidding.
We'll see how many YouTube comments get deleted on this one. Anyway, Girologio came out with some writing mats, and Brian has one right there. Look at that. Brian, is that the cognac or is that the dark brown?
That's dark brown.
That's the dark brown. Cognac's kind of a light brown. So there you go. They are indeed real leather. They
This is also sizely, Drew, I would say.
quite sizely there. And it will protect your desk from any inky mishaps. Of course, you can use it as a mouse pad. It is a smooth writing surface.
For scale.
There you
There's
go.
A pen for scale.
2000 for scale. And they come in, like 4 different colors, I think. You got a black, a navy, dark brown, light brown situation happening there.
I think we did 3 colors, but I honestly don't remember. No,
it was 4. It was 4. Trust me.
Okay. Whoops.
I did the Instagram post.
There you go. Oh, it is 4. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And they're pretty cool. They will come rolled up when you buy them from us, but lay them flat, or you can kind of roll them the opposite way, and they'll flatten out in not so long of a time.
Yeah, they've got like a grip, almost a grippy kind of material on the back. Yeah, it almost feels like a cork kind of a thing, but it's not. I don't know. It's interesting. So it really helps to kind of keep it on the desk, which is nice. It's not just like a random flap of leather that's just like sliding around everywhere. But
And
nice.
those are what is it? Those are like
$30.
$30. Yeah, 29.
I mean, for $30, it looks really nice. It's a good size. I like that it's not just like a square flap too. It's got kind of contoured edges. Yeah. It's really good. So it's especially good if you like to write not in a notebook or like where you have a stack of paper that kind of acts as its own, I don't know, support or backdrop, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like if you have just a single piece of paper and you're trying to write on something, if you're writing on like a wood table or something like that, it's going to feel really hard and it's going to like catch in the grain of the wood. So this is meant to just kind of lay out, and then you can just write, on a single sheet of paper directly on this thing. And, kind of looks nice, allows you to just kind of keep, if you spill ink a lot like I do, you can spill it on that instead of on your wood desk, which I'm still looking at the smear that I did several pencasts ago that I never officially cleaned up. So
what do you mean never officially cleaned up?
I wiped it with a dry like paper towel that I had handy, but I never went back with anything wet and like actually cleaned it. So I'm like, this might just be a part of this now. I don't know. We'll see.
All right. Well, it wouldn't be the first time we covered a desk in ink.
Yeah, it happens,
All right. And that's all the new stuff we have for you this week. All right. So Q&A time, Brian. And I'm going to start things off with a question for you, because you are the only one that would know the answer to this or the proper way to dodge this question. So we'll see which one Brian chooses to do here. All right. Charpentier Jose asks, will there ever be a GPC branded fountain pen?
Ooh, this was the teaser that I had.
This was the teaser. I'm sure you're going to say, yes, and it's going to be available to Pencast people only. Use this coupon code.
I've been holding it for 3 years, just waiting to get asked this
waiting
question.
Waiting for episode 32 of the Goulet Pencast, which we had no idea we were going to be doing.
In fact, we call it episode 32. We were just waiting for the right circumstance to come up. No, I'm kidding. No, this is all a lie. No, we don't have anything planned. But no, I could definitely see that in the future, for sure. I mean, we made pens when we started this business before, we had anybody but me and Rachel. And really before Rachel was, she was always helping, but she was working a full-time job back when I was making pens, being a fool. But ever since we've both been full-time and all that, just haven't been manufacturing pens. We've been doing other things, retailing and making videos and whatnot. Likely, so it depends, it depends how you want to think of like GPC branded pens. Like, would we manufacture our own pens? That I think at this point is probably a bit of a stretch. We have our specialty. We know what we're doing. We have connections with a lot of people who have been making fountain pens for decades, if not more than a century. So for us to come along with no actual like pen manufacturing experience except for me hand turning them on a lathe, and that for sure is not going to be how we bring it back. I can say like the most realistic scenario would be we collaborate. We have a manufacturer that we work with where that's their focus. We code, design, and brand it, and then they make it for us with our heavy input and collaboration. So that I could see definitely happening. Manufacturing our own, I just don't see that being in our wheelhouse. That would be really, really tough to do. So with that in mind, with working with a manufacturer, I would say we could do it theoretically anytime. We can do it right now. We just work with an existing manufacturer, relabel, theoretically they could have a design that we just modify or that we pick up to something that's not readily available or that they discontinued and bring it back or whatever, they probably have designs and things that we could pick up and just call it our own and make it happen relatively quickly. But I don't know. I do get in my own head a little bit about this because I feel like the expectation would be really high for whatever this needs to be, especially because, we're not unknown in the fountain pen world, and, we have pretty intentional, thoughts around pens and how, what they should be and how they should be made and that kind of thing. So
I would like to think that we enjoy a solid reputation for quality. And
yeah, but I feel it's like, it's sort of like, I'm trying to think of like something comparable in some other industry, and I'm failing to think of anything exactly, but it's like, I'm really failing to think of anything, but it's like if we put our name on something and we said it, that's almost, or could be inferred that it's like, okay, we've been working all this time, and with everything that we've known and gathered up about this, we have now created like the ultimate pen, and that might be the expectation, maybe even just for ourselves, maybe from you all as our customers or fans. And I'm like, oh, that feels like a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And realistically, to come out with your first product being the slam dunk home run best of everything, I don't think that's realistic. We would probably have a lot of mistakes and flaws, and we'd learn a lot of things and come out with iterations. That's kind of how it works. I think with things like movies, you usually come out with like a great one, and then the sequels are like, kind of like echoes of the original, and they get worse the more of them you make. Video games, I think, is almost the opposite. It comes out with a great concept of a game, and then the sequels improve and get better and get newer and fresher. Like
that's a good observation.
Thank you, Drew. I'm trying to...
That's solid. You're speaking my language.
Trying to pull it. Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to think of things that Drew will nod to, because that affirms that I know what I'm talking about, even if I don't. So I think that's kind of how it would end up being. Like, we would come out with something and be like, oh yeah, we were trying to innovate, but this is actually a terrible idea. So we need to change that the next go around. But I feel like if the expectation's too high, then we'd come out with something and people would be like, oh, this is garbage. I thought they would do better than this. This is nothing, crap. They don't know how to make pens. What are they doing? Let's stop buying from that altogether. Ban it, boycott, cancel Goulet. And I'd be like, oh shoot, dag on it. We should have spent more time on that. I don't realistically think that would happen, but these are the things that run through my head perhaps. So anyway, all that to say is like, I feel like there's a lot of pressure. If we put our name on a pen, that would be like, oh my gosh, I mean, it's gouletpens.com. That's like the name of the website, for crying out loud. So it's a lot of pressure. So I feel like there's high expectations, and honestly, we're pretty darn busy with a lot of other things. And it's like, is there anything missing that like we should make that just everybody else is ignoring? I'm like, I mean, not really. I mean, not 100%. Like, yeah, there's probably innovation that could happen, but like it takes a lot of time and R&D to develop something like new and innovative. And do we have that time right now? No. So maybe we will, and maybe we'll come out with something really cool. I don't know. But honestly, I wanted to take this question, first to say like, yeah, I'm totally open to doing this. And I think it would be just awesome to have our own branded pen again. That would be very full circle of us, right? But a lot of that itch gets scratched through the collaborations we do and exclusive products. In a lot of ways, the exclusives that we get to do can help to fill a lot of that desire that we have to have our fingerprint on the pen world and get to influence and sell really cool exclusive things. So the need to have like officially a Goulet branded product, the pressure is not on so much for that to happen, because we have, other retailer exclusives. It'd be different if we were trying to build, usually if you have a pen brand, if you're coming up with your own branded item, not necessarily in the fountain pen world, but just in general, if you have a brand that's strong enough where you can create your own branded item, usually what would happen is you would then try to wholesale that product to other larger retailers, especially ones who are not necessarily directly in your demographic, So I think of like, I've got an associate of mine who sells like grooming, hair care type products, beard oils and razors and things like that. So they have their own branded products. They do a lot of YouTube videos and stuff, and they landed Target. So they have their products in Target now. Well, they're getting exposed to so many more people by having those products available at a large retailer like Target. That makes a lot of sense for them to have their own branded products, not only that they're selling, but then is getting out there and kind of spreading for them. But for a company like us to come out with a branded product that we only sell and don't sell through anybody else, that takes a lot of from a business standpoint, takes a lot of the benefit out of, having that branding and having that, kind of thing going on. So, little less incentive to do that unless we wanted to go that route, which at this point we don't. So, it's something that we're thinking about a lot. But part of the reason I wanted to take this question is really I want to kind of gauge from you all, our audience. I really would like to know if we were to come out with like Goulet pens or the first Goulet pen, what should that be? Would that be like a really good value pen, starter intro pen? Would that be some really high-end, heavily themed limited edition? Would it be something really wild and crazy in terms of material or something like that? Or would it be something that's just very practical, very durable, carry around, everyday use? There's so many routes we could go, and the range of products you can come up with in the pen world can range from a couple of bucks to tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, you can really go the full gamut if you wanted to go nuts. So I would just love to know what you all think. So please leave some comments about what you think feels like us. Like, what pens would you want to see with our name on it? Because that will be very helpful in us just understanding better, like what would kind of hit the bullseye. Because ultimately it's all for you all. I mean, I could make a pen for my own ego, but really it's the reason we would make a pen would be to provide them to you all. So would love that feedback. But yeah, nothing specific in the works. I won't even like have a teaser hanger, cliffhanger, spoiler thing dangling out there. There's nothing firmly in the works on this, but you never know. You could be planting a seed here, and I won't be able to get it out of my head. And then, we'll look back and say, episode 32, that's the one. That's the one that did it. You never know.
There we go. Let us know, please.
Indeed. All right. Got a question for you, Drew. This is from Humberto GGC. Okay. Humberto. Okay. Apart from blue and black, are there other ink colors appropriate for the workplace? Hey, you work at a place.
I do, and you know what?
Perspective on this?
It's very frowned upon to use fountain pens at the Goulet Pen Company. I'll tell you, it's just like you shove a big roller ball into the hand and you just send them out into the Steno pool.
You gotta kind of hide it. Yeah,
it's terrible.
Can't have it out in the open.
Shameful. No, in most cases, absolutely work appropriate. But let me start off by saying, if you are mandated by your employer to use either black or blue ink, please do that, especially if there are legal consequences. Don't go against those wishes. There are plenty of beautiful blues out there. You'll be fine. If it's just like if you just kind of want to keep things professional though, then yeah, absolutely. There are a ton of great inks that would look both professional and fun. My suggestions are going to center around darker colors or something that almost looks black, at first glance, but then has that like hint of color. I love those. I really enjoy writing with those. And sometimes I wish I did work at a place that was kind of, strict about that, so I could kind of like have fun sneaking in fun little colors. But I don't, so it's not a big deal. But sometimes I still do. Anyway, the Private Reserve ebony inks are a great place to start. So they've got ebony red, which is kind of a brown, but still looks cool. Ebony blue, ebony purple, ebony green. They have an ebony brown as well, but it's actually not as dark of a brown as you can find in other brands. So pretty much every ebony but brown is a very, very dark color. That's, if you're using a fine nib and it's going on pretty dark, it's only going to have that hint of color that only you'll know that it's actually a fun color. So that's a great place to start. There's lots of good blue blacks. I tried narrowing down one, but honestly, you pick a brand, they're going to have a solid blue black in their assortment, and that's a great place to start. In fact, I think that blue black was, in many ways popularized by trying to, inject some fun color into more professional environments like that. So Robert Oster Motor Oil and Noodler's El Lawrence are two of my favorites. They have this kind of a brownish, greeny, blackies thing going on. El Lawrence is a little bit darker and a little bit more green. Motor Oil is a little bit more brownish, but both of them are fun. And, with a finer nib, they're going to appear much darker with just that hint. And then, of course, Diatramentus Document Series has a black red and a black blue. And I think they called it this because the black is heavier than the other color. Instead of like a blue-black, they're like, let's call it black-blue because it's pretty much black with just the faintest hint of blue. And if you are in a environment where you need to have permanence in your inks, these are great options as well. You can have a little bit of a hint of color, but they're also going to be very, very permanent, waterproof, very, very solid inks that will last longer than the paper in most cases. And then you could also go with a gray. And because I feel like if a black is allowed, then a gray is not too far off, as long as it's not like a light gray. Obviously, Diamine has two very, very popular grays. One of my personal and oldest favorites is Diamine Graphite. I love that color. Just a hint of greenish going on in there. A more true gray would be Diamine Earl Grey, which is probably Diamine's most popular gray, if not one of their top 5 most popular shades overall. Those are my suggestions. Hopefully that helps. Brian, you got anything?
Yeah, I actually did a video on this back in 2017. A short one. It's like a 3.5-minute video. I don't even know if I can.
That's very short for that time
I don't even know
period.
if I'm capable of doing that. I can't even do the intro in 3 minutes these days on the Pencast. So anyway, you can go check that out. We'll have a link in the description. But in there, I talk about work appropriate inks, and it goes along the same vein of what Drew said. Though I did mention some different inks, so that's kind of fun. I didn't even remember what inks. I mean, that was 5 years ago at this point. So I looked back at it. So I said Noodler's Zhivago, which kind of fits in that dark green. Noodler's Walnut, dark brown, that is browner than ebony brown.
It is.
Diamine Oxblood, super popular, dark red color. Definitely holds up. Diatramentis Aubergine. So that's like a deep purple.
Huh.
It's a nice, really nice color. It's a little more vibrant than your PR ebony purple. So see if you could sneak that one in there. That would be a fun one. And then I said Pilot Shizuku Kujaku. So that one is like blue that leans a tad green. So that's not going as much on the dark theme, but that's one that's more like flittering on the edge of what might be considered blue. So you could kind of have some fun. There's a lot of turquoises too that will kind of fall in that vein. It's like, is it blue? Yeah. There's some teals and stuff like that. I feel like you could sneak some of that stuff in there.
Sure.
But basically everything that Drew said, it's like, obviously, if you work at a law office or, some sort of governmental agency and they require certain colors, okay, maybe don't mess around with that on the documents that you need to. But there's plenty of people I know that they're like, yeah, I'm restricted to these colors, but, I have my own notebook that I use for just organizing my stuff or my planner or whatever, and I use friggin' whatever, Diamine Morning Glow or whatever, apple green and all kinds of crazy stuff. They're like, because I just want it to be my own. I'm like, well, more power to you. So like, definitely you can get your color fix in there, even if you have to be somewhat conservative on the color front.
All right. And now we have approached numero tres. And this question is from Radha. And they are asking, love the cast, which is a statement that we like. Thank you. Question for another episode. When I want to change inks in a large capacity pen, like a TWSBI 580, I usually dump the unused ink back into the bottle it came from. Is this a bad idea?
Oh my goodness, I can't believe it.
Why would you do that? No, it's probably okay.
Yeah, you should be okay. You should be okay doing that. Just use your judgment. So, like everything in life, you take calculated risks.
Everything in moderation.
Absolutely. You wake up and you get out of bed. That's a calculated risk.
You could die.
You could trip on your slippers and, then bad things could happen. I won't go down that rabbit hole, but, everything's a calculated risk. So
what kind of slippers are you wearing?
I actually don't wear slippers. I don't know. I went with that analogy. I usually I'm exhausted, so I just take off my jeans and just leave them in a pile.
Brian's slippers have banana peels mounted to the bottoms of them, so it's very, very dangerous. He likes to live on the edge.
Well, you know how many socks that we leave around the house here, so it's a hazardous walking environment in the Goulet household as it is. You got to be very sure-footed around here. Anyway, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, pens. So there's calculated risk, I'll use in heavy quotations, with putting the unused ink back into your bottle. So technically, as you're writing on paper, you're going to get paper fibers and dust and other, environmental contaminants potentially that could be just from using your pen in the wild, right? Just like if you have new shoes and you go and wear them outside and you come back in the house, you're going to be tracking in some of the things from the outside, So yeah, if you want to keep your ink as clean and as possible, you shouldn't do that, right? So I would say if it's just your normal, everyday, very replaceable, regularly available, not crazy expensive ink, yeah, dump it back in there and don't really sweat it too much. Honestly, you'll probably not make it to the end of that bottle anyway, because most of us are buying more ink than we're possibly ever going to use in 12 lifetimes, or 40 in my case. So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily sweat it too much, but I'm right there with you. I still, as much ink as I have access to, I still have this inclination to put my ink back in the bottle. And sometimes it's just practical. Sometimes it's just like, okay, well, I have the bottle of ink right here. Let me just dump it back out and then I'll, go on my merry way. But I would say if it's like a vintage ink or something that is very hard to come by, maybe don't do that. And I know there's like a little bit of backwards logic there, because it's like if it's really old or rare or expensive or whatever, you're like, no, I want to keep every precious drop of this. But I would be inclined to say, well, maybe you shouldn't do that, because if you're trying to keep the ink in the best shape for as long as possible, exposing it to the environment by writing with it and then putting it back in the bottle potentially could expose some contaminants. Specifically with some vintage inks, because, how long do those biocides really hold up? And, it's been a long time, the ink's sitting there for a very, very long time. You can get sludge and build up and other things like that just over time from it sitting there. So I wouldn't tempt fate. I would say just go ahead and use up the rest, or just use a different pen, or just get the enjoyment that you got out of that fill, and then dump the rest. But I did some math, just thinking about it. It's like, okay, so take your typical ink, right? Like an Iroshizuku 50 mil, $20 or so. That's around 40 cents per milliliter, right? I'm just thinking like practically, what does it cost you to dump this ink? So take a TWSBI 580 piston, that's just over a milliliter in the tank of that pen, so to speak. So if it's about, say, half full, like how much would you feel inclined? Like, I don't know, Drew, if you have a 580 that's half full,
don't bring me into this mathematical conversation.
I know.
Leave me out of this. Are you kidding me?
Drew's brain is hurting just by
I'm powering through this. You keep on going. I'm just trying to not melt.
Okay. But it's like from a practical standpoint, because like it's an emotional thing. You're like, I don't want to dump this ink, but like practically speaking, okay, Iroshizuku, it's regularly available, costs $20. Excuse me, 40 cents.
Are you allergic to math too? Because that's how I'm feeling.
No, I put this math in here.
Yeah.
Math gives me life. Not really. So, if you've got half a TWSBI 580s left of ink, right? Which is a pretty decent amount of ink left, right? So that's about 20 cents worth of ink, right? So it's not nothing, but it's 20 cents. Like if you saw 20 cents on the ground and you were walking somewhere, would you stop and bend over and pick it up? And if the answer is no, then you should just dump that ink and not think about it and don't put it back in the bottle, because it's not that much money in the grand scheme of things. Now, if you're like, heck yeah, if it was 4 cents, I would go on the ground and pick it up. Then I'm like, well, maybe you should dump it back in the bottle then, because that's just, where your values lie. So I think with regular ink, regular pen usage, I would say maybe don't sweat it quite as much because it's replaceable. And unless it's a crazy expensive ink, then you're probably fine. But if it's a more rare ink and you really, really are trying to preserve it for a long time, then I would maybe not dump it back in. But it's really up to your discretion, and your mileage may vary. So that's my answer for that one.
Always check the dates on coins, Brian. That's what I always do. Do you know the weirdo?
You can't check the date until you pick it up, Drew. And
I know, but then I'd put it back down. Do you know the weirdo who?
That's insanity. Why would you do that? Then you have no payoff.
I would put it on a shelf or something like that. I'm not keeping nonsense, but I do.
Which shelf? I'm talking like
I
you're
don't
walking
know.
down the street. And
okay, I'll put it on the bumper of a car. I don't know.
What? Why would you do that?
I don't want it. But I always check the dates. I actually also check the little ejection slot of the Coinstar machines every time I go to the grocery store.
The ejection? Oh, because like some of them just don't.
The
make
rejects,
it through?
yeah. A lot of them are foreign coins or coins that are too old. Yeah.
Huh.
I found some fun. I found one from Spain the other day.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Every now and then find one from Canada. Nothing special.
What are you gonna do with that coin?
I have a coin organizer with all my.
What?
I have a South America section. I have a Spain section. I have a depending. And then if anything is pre 1964, there's a good chance it's silver too. That's what you want to look for.
Yeah, at least in the U.S. That was
at least in the U.S. Well, a lot of with the UK, you want to look for stuff prior to decimal day and things like that. But
So
no, decimal day. No, it was not silver back then. With the UK, silver started in I think the 40s at some point. Anyway, don't listen to me. But yeah, always check the dates. You can find some fun stuff if you really want to.
Now you're making my brain hurt. I'm just talking about simple math, and you're like flinching over there. Now you're going on about all this history of coin stuff, and yeah. We've all got our thing, don't we?
Yeah, we do. So, man. So somebody asked in the comments, I didn't put this one on here, but someone asked hey, do you guys isn't it kind of bad to have to work at a place that you're so passionate about? Because hobbies are supposed to be an escape from work. And I replied, I was like, Brian and I have plenty other hobbies. Don't you worry. We have so many things distracting us from life, so we're good. I think I think most fountain pen fans probably have a couple other rabbit holes that they jump down pretty frequently.
Yeah, definitely. Serial hobbyists going on in this community, no question.
I will probably say for anybody that still cares about this question, if you want to, you can also eject your ink back into a sample vial and then just seal that up so that you can keep your ink without actually risking any sort of contamination issues. That's usually what I do.
There you go.
The inks and also I don't put ink that I'm not going to finish in large capacity pens. If I'm going to fill up a VAC 700 or 580 or something like that, it's going to be a pen that it's going to be an ink that I use a lot, like a black or something like that just gets a lot of everyday use. But I know not everybody does that, and I don't want you to not use your pen because you're afraid you can't finish it. But I tend to, the larger the capacity ink, the more practical, larger capacity pen, the more practical ink I put in there. The fun, crazy, weird stuff that I know I'm going to get sick of pretty soon, I put in a cartridge converter pen.
Yeah, and I personally have again, this is as you're newer in fountain pens, you're gonna, you're gonna want to be I want to get the max fill on everything, and you're like, oh, I actually don't love this color quite as much. What do I do with the rest of this now?
Yeah,
happened a lot. I went through that plenty. But now these days, I'm I rarely will I ink up a TWSBI 580 to its max, unless I'm going on a business trip and literally traveling somewhere and I'm at a conference for 3 days writing like crazy. I'm I'm not going to use that much ink. That thing's just going to be more to dry out and have to clean out, and especially knowing my cleaning habits in COVID life here. So when I ink up a 580, I'll ink it a third maybe, because I know I'm not going to use it that much. And if I do use it that much, I can always just put more in, you know what I mean? It all depends on your situation. Do what you want. Live your life. YOLO.
Freedom seals.
Live your best life. Freedom seals. That's right. Oh my gosh. Okay, next question is from Haley Cates. Drew, which fountain pens are among the pantheon of legendary fountain pens? We're talking all pens through all history? Because I see you got some notes in here, and I'm these, I don't even know some of these.
I don't know most of these, but Haley didn't specify. So here's what I'm going to do for you, Haley. This got me thinking with my brains about the time Brian and I walked all over to Italy and visited. Yeah, we hopscotched over to Torino, Italy, where the Aurora factory and offices are. Officina, and we checked out their museum, which is amazing. And one great thing about the Aurora Fountain Pen Museum is that they had a section where they celebrated a bunch of different fountain pens throughout history that were not necessarily Aurora pens. And I was like, this is so super cool. And I found out what their list was. And now this is a list that we cannot tell you why it was on here. They have all the literature there. I don't think they have it public.
Reasons.
They have reasons, but generally each pen had some feature that had not yet been seen before. It pushed the envelope a little bit further within the fountain pen industry. So just real quick, I'm going to run down the list here. 1896. Actually, I'm not going to do the years. I have the years, but whatever. Waterman's 22. The Conklin Crescent Filler, that was 1898, and I do know that was the first self-filling fountain pen. So that's a big deal. So that was the first pen. I think that the Waterman's 22 must have had some sort of an eyedropper or something like that. But the crescent filler
Probably,
was like it actually had the sack in it. So big, huge deal. And then you've got the Waterman's 12S, the Onoto de la Rue, the Parker Duofold, the Schaefer Balance, the Pelican Model 100, the Wall Eversharp Doric, the Parker Vacuumatic, the Mont Blanc 139, the Parker 51, which everybody knows, the Aurora 88, and the Aurora Hastile. So Aurora puts them in there toward the end, but that was their list. And I thought that was really impressive and really cool that they're celebrating the writing history overall. Of these pens, Parker did have a newish 51. I can't speak to that one because we don't carry Parker.
Yeah, they revamped it a year or two ago.
Yeah, I don't.
Recently.
I think it had mixed feelings about that, but I can say that we still do carry the crescent filler, the Conklin crescent filler, the Mark Twain crescent filler, the black one, the chased black. That is more or less the original one. Obviously, there have been some improvements made, but it's basically the same pen. It looks pretty similar. I think it's a little thicker than the original. I think the original was a little more thin, but as far as pens from this list that you can still get, that's probably the one closest to the original, still being made by the same company. So neat. So that's historical stuff. Brian nor I profess to be experts in fountain pen history, and we don't generally like to step out of bounds. We like to focus on the stuff that we've had personal hands-on experience with. And so I did get a list of 5 pens together that I think are currently available pens that deserve a place in kind of like the Mount Rushmore or pantheon of legendary pens that are currently legendary, that I think have changed the landscape of the fountain pen industry in some way, shape, or form. I chose one word to describe each of them just to kind of like categorize them myself. So the Lamy 2000, my pick. I consider that immortal. Pen's been around forever. It will probably continue to be around forever. The Mont Blanc 149. We don't sell this pen, but I picked the word transcendent because even if you're not into pens, this thing is pervasive in a way that I don't think any other fountain pen is. It's out there, outside of the fountain pen realm, and you can't argue the fact that that's huge. The Visconti Homo Sapien, uncompromising. The design of this pen had pushed the envelope very, very far, and Visconti as a whole continues to do this with design and principles and things like that. And the Homo Sapiens has been a grail pen for a lot of people for a lot of years. So I definitely think that belongs on the list. The TWSBI 580, groundbreaking. A lot of TWSBIs could be on this list. You could put the Eco on here too, but I chose the 580 because that's been kind of their flagship pen for the longest period of time. They had the 540 before that, but the 580 has been so accessible for so long and has been such a great entry point for so many people to get into the fountain pen hobby. I think that the 580 I would definitely put that up on the Mount Rushmore of legendary pens that you can currently get. And then finally, I put the Pilot Metropolitan on here. I wanted another one that I use the word prolific here, meaning it is just out there. It has proliferated, right? It is just gotten in so many people's hands and created a positive first-time user experience in the fountain pen world. And of all the starter pens, I almost went with the Safari on this one. While the Safari is immensely popular and in so many hands overseas, I think in the U.S., the Metropolitan has been responsible for a lot of first-time passages, and it comes with a converter, and I think that just like adds to a little bit higher first-time accessibility than the Safari does. But yeah, it's right there. I wanted something that kind of gets people in. So I tried to have a good variety of types of pens. Didn't want to repeat brands either, but whatever. That's just my personal thoughts. So that's me.
It's a pretty solid list, Drew, I would say. I similarly had a list kind of going on there, and I didn't originally have words for each of mine. But as you were talking, I took inspiration. I came up with my own words.
All right.
Which, as you know, last minute pressure is just where I become my most eloquent.
There we go.
So
my hopes are high.
I tried not to repeat your list, but I did for at least one of them. Lamy 2000, I love that pen.
You have to.
It's so good. So for that one, I put cool. because I think that pen's really cool. So that's my iconic word.
There we go.
The next one, boy, I love the Pilot Custom 74, but the Custom 823, it's like hand in hand. So I'm going to put the 823 because that's really risen a lot, and the mechanism, the filling mechanism is cool. So for that one, I put great. I think it's a great pen. The Noodler's Nib Creeper, very controversial, but I think Noodler's has got to be in here somewhere in terms of impact.
I thought about this one.
Like, I would not say this is going to be the greatest writing experience out of anything on this list, but for what it is, it's so influential and iconic, and it changed so much of the game when it came out.
You're absolutely right. It really did shake things up there.
Yeah.
Around 2010, it really shook up the industries. I debated about putting that one in there.
Yeah, so I put that was fun. That was my word. And then I went with TWSBI as well. I did the Eco 580. I think it's a toss-up between the two. Very influential. Eco's definitely become an up-and-comer in the last many years.
Absolutely.
That one, my big $10 word there is neat. I think it's neat. And the last one I had was the Pilot Falcon. I think that one has just been, maybe not talked about as much in recent years, but really ever since we were aware of fountain pens, the Falcon stood alone. It was talked about. It still is a popular pen, great writing experience, such a good reputation. So yeah, I would say that one is nice. So cool, great, fun, neat, and nice. Those are my Michael Scott level descriptors for my pens. But seriously, this is not a super serious list. There's so much more thought that could be put into this.
Yeah.
And if you ask me again in 12 minutes, I'll probably give you 5 different pens. But anyway.
Yeah, I was actually very impressed with your self-control here. And like, there are so many more people that have greater historical knowledge than Brian or I that could put together like a perfect list that takes into account 100 years of fountain pen history. But
absolutely, this is
I thought it might be
meant to be
I thought it might be cool
yeah.
to kind of focus on like what you could go out and get,
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah,
makes sense.
There we go.
Cool.
That was a fun question, Haley. Thank you.
All right.
Final question for this week, Brian, comes to us from Marie, and Marie has a newbie question.
Okay.
She asks, when I hear you speak about pens that need adjustments or tuning, when would I chalk up a less than enjoyable rider to just being the nature of that particular brand or style versus when I need to start seeking help and getting it corrected?
Boy.
That's a good question.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's so tough to answer because there are so many variables. Especially if you're newer to fountain pens, that's so tough because there could be small tweaks based on the way you're holding the pen or the ink or the paper that you're using. There's so many variables that are within your control that don't require any actual adjustment or changing of what the thing is. So I would say that's the first step is, and I got to speak broadly here because it's just such a broad question. I would say
it's more
first,
extra fine.
What's that?
I think it's more extra fine.
Wow. Okay. Well done, Drew. Yeah, I would say the first approach would be to try to address everything that doesn't require actually changing what the thing is first. And obviously, if you're newer to pens, and if it's a new pen, if it's a vintage or something you bought at a show or whatever, I mean, you're gonna just figure it out. But if it's something you bought new, like from us or another retailer, reach out to that retailer and be like, hey, this is what I'm experiencing. I don't know if this is normal for what this pen is. Going back on the example we had kind of at the beginning with the feedback where people were talking about the Platinum 3776 Century. Great pen, has a great reputation, but the nib's a little stiff for some people that like the bouncier nibs on something like a Pilot. Well, it doesn't mean that anything's wrong with the Platinum. That's how the pens are made. That's how they're designed. So it could just be that it's a preferential thing, So it could be that it warrants, an exchange for something that you just prefer more. Or it could be maybe you just had an initial impression of like, oh, I thought this was going to be bouncier, but then as you use it more, you're like, actually, you know what? I don't mind it so much because I'm kind of getting used to it and I appreciate it for what it is in different circumstances. I've had that happen many times where I had, whether it's an ink, a paper to lesser degree, but certainly pens where it's like, oh, like I had in my mind, like what I was going to see or experience or how much I would like something. But in like the first word that I write, I'm like, nah, this is different. It's like if you're, if say you really love iced tea and you really love milk and you're picking up your cup and you think that it's going to be milk, but you accidentally grab the person next to you and it's their iced tea and you're like, oh, what is this? It's not that you don't like iced tea, it's just that you're expecting milk and it's very different. So I don't know why I went with that example, but clearly that's happened to me.
I feel
it's important in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, it's the kind of thing that like, I think you don't necessarily want to make a snap judgment about it. You want to get some experience with it and just really try to understand, like, is this thing what it's supposed to be? And I just need to either get used to it or change it because I just really don't like it. The whole thing with the adjustment or like nib grinding, nib tuning, that kind of thing, that's more if the thing is either just like flat out not working right, like it's not working properly, which I think the biggest indicator there is consistency. If it's consistently behaving in some manner and, you or whatever are able to ask other people who've used it or ask whatever the retailer, whoever you got it from, and you find that there is consistency with that product, but it's just not maybe to your liking, that's not necessarily anything wrong with it. And if you still love all the other aspects of it, say it's a nib that's too stiff or it doesn't write as wet as you would like, or the nib size isn't quite what you would want. Well, if you can't exchange it or whatever, then it's like, I love the pen. Let's say it's a limited edition color or something. It's like, this color speaks to me, but this nib size is just not cutting it for me. And now it's discontinued and I can't get another one. Well, it might be worth modification because you would love that pen more if you could change what it is. Doesn't mean that's not what it was supposed to be. It just means that you want it to be something different than it is. So I think that's one thing, if you want to, that's worth modifying. If you have really just determined like, no, this is what it's supposed to be. I just want it to be something different than what it is. I think it's a different situation if you're writing with a pen and say like scratchiness, smoothness, that's a big thing with fountain pens and same with flow. If you're writing with it and it's really scratchy in one direction, but not in another, and it feels very inconsistent, that's a sign that some adjustment or some tuning is probably in order. And that's where, you can either work with the retailer or maybe look to either adjust it yourself or have somebody else adjust it just to make it to be what it's supposed to be. So that's a fine line to try to gauge, but that's what you want to try to determine is it consistent? Is it, behaving like it's supposed to? I think the things that are most common for customization is nib grinding, specifically if it's like a particular size of a nib or maybe the angle. Some people write with a really high angle, low angle, whatever. That may or may not match up to way the pen, flows or performs the best. So, if you go to a pen show, for example, and you see what nibmeisters are doing, a lot of times they're adjusting for flow or they're adjusting for the grind based on the specific way that somebody holds the pen. That's very difficult, especially if you're new, because even like the nibmeisters and stuff, they have some information on them, maybe their websites that talk about pen angle and all this kind of stuff, but really it's difficult to understand that online. Like really that's why they all do pen shows so much, is because you get to see the person and get to write with them and see the angle they're holding it at. So that's where modification can come in. If you over time determine like, yes, I hold my pen at an angle that is very, outside of where they might typically grind, then I probably need to consider getting my pen modified for it to be most comfortable for me. So yeah, I think the safe rule is to try to use the thing regularly for maybe a month or so. You'll get to know it well. You'll find out if it has consistencies. Try and contact the retailer, wherever you got it from. See like, is this thing performing as it's supposed to? And am I just kind of learning it, getting used to it? And then after that time, do I still fundamentally want to change what this thing is? Then you should look at modification. Or you're like, yeah, I'm kind of over this, and you return it and get something that you like better. So I think that's a general rule that you can kind of go with.
Yeah, and
does that sound fair?
Absolutely, and especially the thing he said last. I was going to mention that if he didn't. Do not keep a pen that you do not like. Like the whole point of this hobby is to just experience the joy of writing. And if you've got a pen, honestly, trust your instincts. Like even if you think it might be you, like that's fine. Like return it anyway. Yeah, you might get a restocking fee or something like that, but get a pen that makes you happy. Get a pen that makes you want to write. So your preference is okay. Don't think that, oh, it's just me, I'll have to deal with it. No, don't deal with it. Get it back. Like, eat the restocking fee cost or the shipping fee or whatever. Get a pen that makes you super happy. Like, there's enough out there that there's going to be one that is perfect for you. You just gotta find it. Do a little bit of research. Talk with the team at the retailer you bought it with. Get that thing dialed in. But ultimately, make sure you're happy with what you got. Nobody, like whether it's us or another retailer, nobody in the industry wants a customer to have a pen that they don't love. It benefits everybody. It benefits you because you get to have a pen that excites you. Benefits the whole industry because odds are you're going to want to buy another one at some point if you love fountain pens enough. So everybody wins if you get a pen that you love. So I can't say that enough. Get a pen that you love. Make it work.
I will say one little exception, one little caveat to that.
One exception to not getting a pen you love? What?
No. I mean, okay, so I think this is where we are in the land of nuance here, right?
Oh,
so I think
don't pull me into your gray area, Goulet.
No. Hey, we live in a gray world. Come on, whether we like it or not.
All right.
I think that there are some. I have some pens that I don't love the way that it writes, but I am really glad that I have it because it's serving a different purpose to me than just being a daily writer. I have some things that are either collectible or I love the way that they look or I like that they complete like a portion of a collection that I have within a certain brand. So there may be aspects of it that I don't love quite as much, but I'm okay with that because that's not the main reason why I have it. So I will say it's not like if everything's not perfect about the pen, just get rid of it because then especially if you're talking like special editions or limited editions, these types of things, if you find that you really enjoy the collection aspect of a particular pen, but you're like, dang it, I had an original Savannah Lamy Safari that was just a little bit scratchy, and I let that thing go, and if I had it now, I would have my complete collection. Now they're $500 on eBay. I wish I just freaking kept the dang pen. So I'm just saying, you may want to keep that in certain circumstances.
In very certain circumstances, sure. But I'm talking about fountain pen for writing purposes. And if it's not writing the way you want it to,
fair enough.
Find something that does. And also, before you're jumping to any conclusions about whether or not it's doing the thing it's supposed to do, eliminate variables. Clean your pen. It's kind of like restarting your computer. Give it a good cleaning. Change your ink. Try a different paper. Just eliminate any variables that you think might be gumming up the work so that you can go and do what Brian said earlier and establish consistency. But you can't establish consistency if you have a variable floating out there, you're just, gumming up the works.
Absolutely.
But ultimately, we want you to be happy. So let us know if you're not.
Well said. Yeah. All right, everybody. It's been a little while. We've gotten some comments about not having done a hypothetical question in a little bit. I'm not going to say it's Drew's fault, but I will say that I've got one for this week that I think would be kind of fun. I actually keep a list of them for my kids because they love hypotheticals and would you rathers. And I drive the kids' carpool every now and then, and they always want to do hypothetical questions. So, I got one here, Drew, if you're ready for it. It's kind of fun.
And yes, it has been my fault. I would think of one every week, and I just stopped doing that.
It's not like it's expected and it's your fault you haven't done it. I would say it's your credit for everyone that we've had.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Without you doing the work, there is a void to be filled in our hearts with hypothetical questions, and today I'm gonna fill that void. So
bring it on. What you got?
My question for you, Drew, is it's a would you rather question.
All right.
Okay? Would you rather take a pill a day for nutrients and feel full, but never actually eat anything again, or eat whatever you want, but you never really feel full? Assume that all your nutrition is fine and you weigh the same and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, you weigh the same. Oh, okay.
You weigh the same. Yeah. So nutritionally, say it's a wash.
Gotcha.
But just
okay.
Because
I was about to say, if I never feel full, I'm going to eat until I just get gigantic and die.
You would basically have that feeling of being hungry, but you get to enjoy the taste of the food, the texture, the whole experience. But you always are kind of left like you still want more food. Or would you rather just Jetsons, slice off a pat of butter and you get all your nutrients and you go on with your life, but you don't actually get to eat anything?
That's a good question. I feel like I would just be miserable and eat. I feel like after a couple years, I'd get used to it. I mean, people live their whole lives with chronic pain, and I'm sure feeling like you're hungry is. I'm sure if you had to give somebody that question, like, hey, would you rather have chronic knee pain from that football injury in high school, or just feel hungry? Be like, oh my God, please let me feel hungry. This knee, like, constant. So I mean, if people live with joint pain and stuff like that, or arthritis, and like being hungry is probably not that bad. So yeah, why not? I'll be hungry. I do not. No one's taken away my Bojangles and my jambalaya. Like I don't even.
That's true. You would never get to eat those again.
That's a bad dream. Like yeah, sure, I'd save money, but the community aspect. And I'm an introvert, so I'm like not jumping out of my boots to get go to social activities. But going out to eat and oh man, that's such a big part of what makes me happy. And we'll discuss this in my what's happening segment. But food is very closely tied to joy and happiness. And
I mean, food is central to basically every human social culture.
Yeah,
like, it's such a big deal.
I'll deal with
especially if you were the only one. Like I mean, we're taking this
it's already
farther,
it's already awkward enough that I don't drink. I don't need to add any more awkwardness to my social food activities.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll deal with I'll deal with the grumbly tummy. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair
what
enough.
about you?
Gosh, I was leaning the other direction, but I don't know, Drew. You got a pretty compelling argument there. That's tough. I mean, okay, so look at me. I'm no stranger to eating, right? Like naturally, I kind of fall into the second camp anyway, where I eat a lot and I kind of never feel full.
Hey, we're already there.
So I'm kind of already living that life, and I guess it's manageable. It's not so bad. But I will say, to play a little bit of devil's advocate, it does take a lot of time. Like I spend a lot of time cooking, preparing, eating, all that kind of stuff. And sometimes that's really tough to fit in because
you'd have to do that anyway to help your family. It's not like you're just cooking for yourself.
Yeah, that's true. I guess that if we nuance the hypothetical, if I still got to be like preparing food for the family and doing like, I hate going to the grocery store.
Oh, so do I. Oh, I hate it.
It's just like, yeah. I mean,
they do have Coinstar machines. So I mean, but other than that,
well,
they
that's
suck.
true. You can pick up a random unwanted coin every now and then, but aside from that, yeah, I don't know. Oh, yeah, that's true. If I still had to do all that for my family, and then I would just be like sitting there while everybody else is eating, and that would be kind of a bummer. So I think you've kind of convinced me, Drew. I was originally not taking in the full aspect of that question, even though I was asking it. But I think if it was just me and I was kind of on my own, I'd be like, totally, just give me a pill. Like I got other things I want to do.
Yeah.
Just get that food in my face. Like that's usually what lunch is for me, is like, I got 4 minutes until my next meeting because this last one ran long, and then I had to go to the bathroom and yada, 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 yada. And I got 12 emails to answer while I'm eating lunch. I'm like, what is the quickest thing that I can shove down my gullet so that I don't pass out this afternoon? Like I just need nutrients.
Well, let me give you a different sort of thing. That has less the familial aspect. If you could just take a pill to never have to sleep, but you'd always be sleepy.
Well, that's pretty much what my life is like right now. So I can deal with that. I got 2 kids in my own business, man. That is my life. I don't get to sleep. Are you kidding
So
me?
you're always hungry and you're always sleepy?
Yeah, pretty much. I don't think the hunger has as much to do about like the kids or the business or anything. That's just my biology.
Sounds miserable, Brian.
I'm just like, I don't know. This
How
is
are
my
you
body.
how are you so happy all the time if you're always hungry and always sleepy?
I'm just really cranky. I don't know. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
All right, well that answers that.
No. I mean, Hunter, I have another really good hypothetical.
Oh,
but
my face is
we're
hot.
running along. I have another good hypothetical, but I'm gonna save it. But I got to write it down.
Okay.
Okay, hang on. Just give me 1 second. This is super awkward because you're just like watching me type, but I can't talk and type at the same time.
Oh, that was good. Thank you for that. Wow, my sweater just got like 10 times as hot just because I was exhaustively gasping and laughing.
That's such a good question. Okay.
All right.
I'll save that for later. This is really
Okay.
Really good one.
All right. Hypotheticals are back, folks.
Apparently, at least for the next 2 weeks.
Yes, and please let us know what you think for both of them, sleep and food. Would you be eternally sleepy or eternally hungry in exchange for not having to deal with either of those? Or would you be, or are you already like Brian, where you are just moseying about your day,
cranky, sleepy, hungry mess.
Please let us know. Thank you, and I hope you're not like Brian. I'm sorry.
Hey, come on now. It's not so bad. Now we're gonna go on to our tip of the week. All right, folks, tip of the week. I prepared a little bit, minimal preparation on this one, but I'm going to try and demonstrate it live. I don't know if it's going to work. So I'll talk about it in concept first, and then we'll try the live demo. And if it's a total failure, maybe we'll cut it out and pretend like it never happened, but that's okay. Anyway, let me just tell you what it is.
This seems like it would just be easily spoken, Brian. What are you doing?
Well, I thought, like, why don't I try to show it? Okay, anyway.
All right.
Let me tell you what I want to talk about, and then I'll tell you how I plan to demonstrate it. Okay, so the tip of the week is, if you have an ink that you're using and it's really heavily saturated, but you want to whether get more shading, maybe get it to flow a little better, stop some of the smearing, maybe the dry time, you can dilute the ink with some distilled water to varying degrees, depending on what properties you're trying to attain. Noodler specifically heavily saturates the inks, and Nathan says you get as much ink, as much dye in these inks as possible, specifically so that if you want to dilute them, you can, and you get even more value out of your ink, because that's just the way he thinks. It's all about value. So, it's something that definitely is not a mystery and isn't even encouraged to do with different manufacturers, but not sure that it's something that most people are aware they can do. So I wanted to just kind of demonstrate that out a little bit. If I really had my act together, I would have demonstrated it out and made sure that it presented well and looked really good on camera, and then just shown you, here's what I did earlier. But I didn't do any of that. So I was just gonna dilute and then swab up a couple of different dilution levels and kind of see what it looked like. And if it's great, then perfect. It doesn't take a whole lot of time. And if it's a total fail, then I'll be like, well, maybe it'll work on another ink and maybe you'll have better luck than me, but that's the concept. So we're playing with live ammo here, Drew. I'm taking a little bit of a risk.
Well, a lot of people think that it would somehow harm your ink to put water in it. It really doesn't. Ink is mostly water. The inks we sell at our store anyway, most fountain pen friendly inks are mostly water. So it's not that big of a deal. And if your ink dries out to the point where it's just a bunch of crust, what you're seeing left over is just the ink without the water. So you can resurrect it, bring it back to life with more water. So water is not an enemy to ink in any way. Now, if it's a super, super light ink, then yeah, you could render it invisible. But if it's a super saturated ink, Organic Studio Nitrogen, we've actually talked about that in the Pencast. That is a super saturated ink that sheens like no other. It's an insane ink. It never dries. So adding ink to it could, enhance the dry time a little bit.
Exactly. So what I've got here, I've got a bottle of, again, minimal preparation here. I grabbed the most saturated bottle of ink that I already had sitting on my desk, which is a bottle of Lamy Crystal Amazonite.
Okay.
Fairly saturated ink.
Yeah.
So I've just syringed a little bit into a vial here. I'm doing about 0.5 milliliter, so this isn't going to be a completely exact science. And then you know what? I'm realizing right now, I left my cup of water that I actually did pour to prepare. I left it in the other room. That's okay, because I have my water bottle, and I'm going to pour it into my empty cup, and then I will be able to just dilute it. So the thing that I recommend when you're doing this, don't take your full bottle of ink and go dumping a bunch of water into it, because you can't take it back once you do that. So definitely recommend putting it into a vial. So now what I'm doing is I'm just adding a little bit of diluted water here into my vial, and I'm going to just do not much. Again, this is not super scientific, but I'm going to dilute it maybe 10%, right? And then I'm going to give it a little shaky shake. So I find that if you do 10%, it's not going to change the color a whole lot, but it might change some of the properties. So I'm going to swab up the original. I'm deeply saturating my Q-tip, and then I'm swabbing, ta-da, OG. Okay, So now I've got the original. I'm going to turn the Q-tip around, and I'm going to swab up the newly 10% dilution, and I'm going to see if that makes any difference. Okay. Now, granted, I'm not like putting it in a pen and seeing the flow and all that kind of stuff. That actually would take a lot more time to test. Okay, so I put that down. I basically want to see like how much can I dilute this before it actually like substantively changes the color of this ink to where you can see the difference in a swab. Okay, so I got my 10% and I'm letting it dry a little bit just so that I can, you know, give you a better impression. Because sometimes when you first put it down, you know how it is, Drew. When you first put the ink down on there, it'll look darker, and then it lightens up as it dries. So I'm just giving it a few seconds here. All right, so I add a little more water. So I'm going to say this is more like a 20%-ish dilution. Again, you could be more exact. I could actually count the drops and those kind of things, but that's not really what matters at this moment.
Our disposable pipettes are actually really good for this. The drop control is a lot more easy to control than the syringes that Brian's using. Though you could definitely do it, but
I got good drop control here. I can
no, you don't.
Look at that.
No,
look at that. I'm gonna hang on to that drop.
No,
look at.
I'm not impressed.
There's that drop. One drop.
No, you're that.
2 drops.
Stop trying to prove me wrong.
Oh, I
Brian.
got all kinds of drop control.
Get out of here with that.
Nope. I'm gonna bring that back up.
Oh, come
on. Oh yeah, precision halfway. I'm gonna get it all the way out. Nope,
anyway. Oh my God.
Brian's got some drop control.
Jeez. Anyway, okay. If you want to, you can use
I'm flexing.
those things.
That's a weird flex.
I like
That's
to
a weird
use
flex.
the disposable pipettes, Brian. And honestly, I think the drops are more droppy. I think they have a better drop profile, personally.
What does that mean? Drops are more droppy?
Well, there's the drop council has a very specific type of drop profile that needs to be met in order for it to qualify for official droplet certification.
I think you don't have a clue what you're talking about.
Well, joke's on you. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just trying to fill time while you are doing your malarkey, Mr. Goulet.
All right. So I've got a few different dilution levels here. And then, again, this is very non-scientific, but it gives you somewhat of an example. So I have the original, right, at the top. And then I did roughly a 10% dilution, 20%, and maybe 30%. And you can see it definitely is getting lighter. Mm-hmm. So what that means is you're going to have a little bit of a change in dry time, perhaps a little bit of change in flow. That's going to depend on the ink itself. But certainly you're going to get more shading, and it's going to affect some other properties of the ink. So you can see there just about how much color it's going to change and stuff like that. So it's just something that I think is an option. It's easy. You have water nearby. I think you can use bottled water. It doesn't necessarily have to be distilled, especially if you're just testing it out. Technically, distilled water is the best because it has no minerals in it. So if you're going to do a full bottle of ink, I would recommend using that. But if you're just messing around, swabbing like I am here, you can use tap water. It doesn't matter. So yeah, that's what I think. It's just something fun to play around with. You can test out some inks if you have someone that you're like, yeah, I just really didn't like this one, or I didn't like particular properties. You can try diluting a little bit and maybe give it a new breath of life. Maybe you'll love it after that.
I just got an idea, Brian.
Oh, what's your idea, Drew?
As you know, I'm a fan of extra fine nibs.
Mm-hmm.
But yet, I sometimes become sad because I want to use an ink that might have good shading. But yet, in an extra fine nib, I'm not putting down a whole lot of ink, and I can't get that nice shading. But if I diluted it a bit, perhaps
you might be able to get some shading. All right, Drew, that's your homework. You got to take, because I know you have some extra fines. Like Drew totally doesn't need more to do.
Don't give me overrun.
Just one of your pens. Just one of your pens. Drew, this is super easy. Take an extra fine that you already have inked up and just suck a little bit of water up in there. Just dilute it just in the pen. Like no extra work. No extra work. Just do that and see if it helps your shading. That's all. And report back.
Oh my God.
That is super interesting. I've never thought to do that. I've never thought to dilute specifically to try to get better shading in an extra fine nib.
I don't even know what I have in here.
I think it's very interesting.
Oh, it's my Christmas ink. So this is Noel. But this one's not a shady thing. This is that red with the See, this one I wanted because I did run into something similar. I wanted this ink because it has a funky sheen to it, like kind of a green sheen or brownish sheen. I don't think diluting that is going to help me there.
It's going to give you less sheen.
Yeah, so that's not. I wouldn't want to do with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I have Winter Miracle in here, and I don't want to mess with that. And that's not an extra fine either. This one,
you could always, Drew. You could always ink up a fourth pen. I'm just saying.
Stop
I'm just saying.
Hodgepodge.
I could also do this too. I don't know why I'm putting all this on you.
I don't know either. I don't know either.
Come on.
That's true.
I was seeing if it was seeing if you were going to take the bait.
Well, you know, I would have if this was. I still have my Christmas inks in here, and they're very.
It's really interesting. If y'all care about this at all, let us know in the comments, and one of us will ink up an extra fine, even if it's while we're doing next week's Pencast. Then we'll know, that it's worthwhile. So anyway, we'll mess around with it, or y'all try it and let us know what you think. That's what I got. So anyway, dilute your ink to help with flow, saturation, smearing, etc. That's our tip of the week. All right, next up, we've got the What's Happening segment of the stuff that, this is for all the people that you're already an hour and a half in on this thing, and you're like, yeah, this is how I want to spend my time.
This is the snatch block people.
Let's talk about some nonsense. These are our snatch blockers. Our snatch blockers, our cumbersome screamers. These are the turkey hammock people. So
yeah, this is how you end on a biscuit right here.
That's right. Let's do it. So Drew, I understand that you had an interesting last week.
Yeah, well, I told y'all that my in-laws are visiting. So my wife's mom, my wife's sister, my wife's sister's husband, and their kid. It was a full house. So that was fine. I still would rather people visit than me visit them, because at least I'm in my own house. We were in the guest room on air mattresses and kids' playthings, but still in my own house. Still had my stuff. So that was fine. But they're gone now, so we're back to normal. The air mattress is deflated and stored and put away. But I had a great post-in-law visit weekend, Brian. And it started on Friday, because after I published the Pencast, I went to Waffle House by myself. And I just sat at the bar area, and I was just like, And it's just something special about it. I just love me some Waffle House. And all the people were like, all the employees were just joking and yelling at each other and making fun of each other. It was just a really, really great, positive environment. Yeah. And they're like, "Do you need a menu?" I was like, "Nope," because I know what I want. And then they don't even say, "Here's a menu." They're like, "Do you need one?" Because a lot of people that come in here.
Do I have to give you a menu?
Yeah, I was like, I don't need a menu. I'm getting an all-star special. So that was delightful and magical and delicious, and I was back within an hour, and that is the magic of Waffle House. And
true.
I'll also say that Waffle House, you can always see them cleaning, you can see the floors of the kitchen, you can see them checking the inventory. Like they do a lot back there. And
it's true.
People say like, "Oh, Waffle House," but like, where else can you eat and you can see the kitchen? And you could eat at a nice restaurant, but if you can't see the kitchen, you don't know what's going on back there. I've worked at a restaurant, I've seen some kitchen. And the kitchen that I worked at did not look as good or was cleaned with the regularity that the Waffle House kitchen is cleaned at. So I don't want to hear it about Waffle House. It's a gem. It's an irreplaceable piece of Americana that should be revered.
Wow.
Anyway, that was how my weekend started. It was delightful. And continuing the breakfast train, the next morning, we actually took my mother-in-law to the airport, and then on our way back through Richmond, stopped at City Diner for breakfast, which is another small little diner. I
love you some diners, man.
Oh, God, I do. I so do. And it was snowing, Brian. I was like, and I was facing the window in my little booth, had my coffee, my breakfast, and I saw the snow it was right in front of the Science Museum in the DMV, so like some old Jeffersonian buildings.
Some old architecture there.
Oh my God, it was magical. And pancakes make everything better.
So magical about having pancakes at dinner time. That I gotta say.
Pancakes anytime. Like a breakfast food is the most miraculous thing ever. And
Brenner is like a regular staple in the Goulet household.
And that's why in this episode's hypothetical, I have to say that I will have to eat. I could never forego eating, because it like breakfast is a direct tunnel into my heart and soul, and it is a panacea. It cures me of all ailments, and I would be lost without it. And my wife's looking at me like, well, you are really happy right now, aren't you? I was like, yes. I'm just like beaming. My chipped diner coffee mug that had a big old chunk taken out of it. I'm just like happy as can be.
Right.
And we watched Encanto this weekend, so I finally got around to that. That was pretty good. Didn't knock my socks off or anything. It was no Moana, but still a solid entry to the Disney library. And also that night, I just ordered Pizza Hut, and it was just a great experience. Just a nice, buttery, delicious crust. Oh my God!
Quite the restaurateur this weekend here.
Yes. Fancy, distinguished.
Restaurateur? Restaurateur is somebody that runs a restaurant, isn't it?
Yeah.
Quite the patron. Quite the restaurant patron this weekend.
There we go. And then Sunday night, we had dinner with friends, and they just made a bunch of casseroles. It was kind of like a casserole night. We had like a shepherd's pie and then some other sort of chicken casserole thing. And normally I'm not a casserole person, Brian, because they're ugly and mushy, but they were delicious. I generally don't like ugly, mushy foods.
You don't like single pan meals, like everything kind of mushed together in one thing?
If it's like, sausage and veggies and pasta or rice or something, then yeah, sure.
Okay.
But like when it is
jambalaya.
Oh hell yeah! Like I'm sorry. Yes, absolutely. Sorry, you got me excited about jambalaya.
You got really excited.
I do get very excited about jambalaya. But if it's like when it becomes sloppy, like don't even talk to me about sloppy Joe. I don't want sloppy Joe looking at me. It's just no. Why would you want a floppy hamburger? Like why not just a burger? Don't even.
I like a sloppy Joe.
No, don't even talk to me about sloppy Joes.
I'll do that.
But anyway, the negative of my weekend, Brian, was I've been sore for like 4 days because I'm so out of shape. I downloaded a boxing game for the virtual reality thing I got, the Oculus. So I'm doing this boxing game. I'm like, all right, cool. It's $10. Let me grab this thing. So, I'm fighting the guy. I'm like, all right, cool.
Like shadow boxing, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, basically, but there's the bad guy, Ugly Joe. I'm fighting him. And I'm really giving it my all because I don't know if you know this about me, but I, for as not active as I am, I also have a lot of energy. So I'm pretty sedentary.
Never really picked up on that. Yeah,
pretty sedentary in my lifestyle, but I also have a lot of energy. It's a weird dynamic.
That is true. You do have that dynamic.
Yeah, it's strange. But so I'm giving this my all. I'm like, okay, cool. If I just go nuts to try to take this guy's head off, it works better. Yeah. But then he stopped getting hurt by my punches. I'm like, so I'm going harder and harder and harder and harder. I'm like, like dying. And my arms are hurting. And then finally he goes down, but I am like blasted for the next day. I can't move. I can't put my shirt on. I'm like, my arms are useless. My shoulders are in pain. And I found out that this game, the harder you punch, the game like adapts to your strength level because otherwise not everybody would be able to play it.
Yeah, you'd have like children trying to play this game that would
so
just
what
lose
it does,
to everybody.
it takes your strongest punches it measures the velocity and the speed and everything like that. It says, like, okay, well that's this player's average strong punch. But I was giving it everything that I had, but it was adapting.
Like from the get-go.
Yes, from the get-go. So so I'm totally punishing myself because I didn't think that this game was going to have some funky adaptive punching thing. So I haven't played it since because I've been just suffering, and you
got to get amped up to do it again.
And dude, it was three 3-minute rounds. That's not even 15 minutes of activity, Brian. And I was totally wiped.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
If you're going hard at it, like I could see.
I know.
This is an activity you do every day, so these are muscles you're not used to using.
I don't do anything every day, but yeah. So anyway, I need to have a rematch with Ugly Joe, but I'll let you know how that goes. But I need to be measured in my approach.
See, maybe what you need to do is you need to try it when you're really sore and tired, and it'll adapt to that, and you'll just be like,
I need to save those.
Just as effective.
I need to save those big hits. I'll let you know. I'll let you know how it goes.
There you go. You need to just be really sore and tired, and then call Archer over and be like, "Hey, throw this punch for me," and then he'll just
I let him play. I recorded him. It was madness. I was like, he's gonna break something. He was doing the windmill
boy.
Oh yeah, he was windmill. Yeah, he was going nuts. He lost every round, and then I didn't know you could do this, but once the round is over and the referee's standing there in between you and gonna tell you who the winner is, Archer just starts punching the referee. And apparently you can do that.
Oh gosh!
And I'm looking on my phone because I can see his screen. I'm like, Archer, don't punch him there. What are you talking about? Like, that's terrible. That's below the belt, son.
Punching the ref below the belt.
Yeah.
Generally frowned upon.
He thought it was
professional
hilarious.
Sports.
He thought it was hilarious.
I mean, it is pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
He's not a real person, so it can be funny.
Poor sportsmanship coming from Archer Brown.
There you go. Well, it's a learning opportunity.
Shameful.
Right? It's a teachable moment for your son.
Shameful, yeah. How was your weekend, Brian?
Well, I didn't fake punch anybody, but I'm also a little sore, but for very different reasons.
No doubt more productive reasons.
Yeah, most definitely. This is how it roll. This is how we roll. Drew's like, I did all this crazy nonsense, and I'm like, yeah, I like re-landscaped, this thing and moved, 80 tons of stone. And he's like, oh, cool.
Well, I did that too. I just didn't want to talk about it.
Didn't want to brag. Well, I had my in-laws visit this past weekend as well. Rachel's parents came into town, got to do some work outside, and we got a little bit of land. And her parents live in like suburbs of DC, so they have they're in a typical suburban area, and we have we're like in the country, for them. So her dad always loves coming down and getting to do get the hands dirty, put the boots on and to get muddy and do some work and stuff like
Brian's
that.
Brian's like, which chainsaw do you want to use?
Yeah, and I'm literally like, you got to tag out because I will work until we both drop. Like, this is just how I roll. So I'm like, let me know what you want to do. So it was kind of cool just getting to work with him. He's a good guy. Like, we have really good relationship with both sets of in-laws. But we had just, we've had a lot of storms, like ice storms and snow and all this kind of stuff. So we've just had so many like downed trees and branches and all that kind of stuff. So I've been cleaning up a lot of that, wood chipping a lot, just that kind of stuff. So there's plenty of that going on. But my big event, I did the French drain thing. Thank you, Henry French, for that epiphany. But I had a little bit of stone delivered to my house, and I'm spreading some stone because I have a paved driveway, and the edges off the driveway have eroded quite a bit. So I'm trying to build them back up so that I've got a nice firm edging on the side of the driveway, so that it doesn't crumble when trucks and stuff drive on it. But it's a decent length driveway, and I did the math on how much stone I actually needed, and it's more than you can just get in bags at the home center. So I actually linked up with a landscaping supplier that gets the dump trucks from the quarry kind of situation. So that was a new thing for me. I've never bought gravel in bulk before.
I hope the dump truck didn't make your driveway crumble. That would be ironic.
Wouldn't that be ironic? Well, so I ordered a smaller dump because I had to call them up, and this is all new to me. I don't know. I don't do this every day. We lived in this house for 10 years, and I've watched the stuff degrade over time since then. So I knew I needed to do it. But I had a smaller, an 8-ton load of dump truck come down, and he handled it just fine. I talked to him. I was like, so the bigger truck? He's like, yeah, the bigger truck is an 18-ton load of, not counting the weight of the truck, so 18 tons of stone. And I was
what was the one you got?
The first one was an 8-ton load.
So more than double.
More than double.
Oh
yeah. And I was like,
God.
And so I had got the smaller load first because I was like, I want to make sure it can handle the weight. And plus they're kind of big and long, and they got the whole tilt bed and everything. So you got to have room for it to dump and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, long story short, I've had a total of 62 tons of stone delivered to my house because that is how much stone it's taking to do everything that I need it to do. Because you've heard me talking for weeks now. It's so muddy around here. I have no solid ground where I need to do my work. So yeah, 62 tons of stone. It's been 4 truckloads of stone.
And they just leave that with you for you to do stuff with.
Yeah. Theoretically I could hire somebody to do things with it, but I'm going to do it myself. So I've got, I've been spreading a good portion of it, but I've got a pretty sizable mountain of stone in my driveway right now. So I'm parking in the yard and all this kind of stuff, but I've spread a decent amount of it. And yeah, so I did the math.
How are your hands? Are you not calloused and sore?
Oh. Well, I wear gloves, but yeah, my hands are so dry and and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Shoveling always destroys my hands.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. But it's okay. It's a good workout. I like moving it. I have some, some equipment and stuff that's helping, but still it's just a lot of physical work. But I like doing it. I don't know, whatever. I have lights, it's cold, but I just wear jackets and so on. It's mostly below freezing while I'm working as well, which, Drew, is nice because you know me, I sweat like crazy. So I'm like literally out in short sleeves while I'm shoveling stone. It's below
That's
freezing.
actually
And I'm
really
just like,
perfect
I'm
for
like,
you.
oh, I'm so comfortable in this. Like I need it to be below freezing
Now,
to not be actively sweating.
I'm not as miserable as you in the summer, but I hate the summer weather. So I will go out there and my face will hurt because it's so cold, but I will still say still better than summer.
Still better.
Still
No
better than
bugs
summer.
too. No bugs.
100%.
Love
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely.
Yep. You just gotta
I will
work in the
take
dark.
that over summer any day of the week.
There you go. There you go. But I did the math. So 62 tons of stone. That's 2/5 the weight of the Statue of Liberty. So I have 2/5 of a Statue of Liberty that I've had in my house, not counting the base, but the actual thing's 150
plinth.
tons. Yeah, there you go. And it's about the weight of 30 cars. So that's how much stone I've had to deliver.
So you will eventually, one day, shovel 30 cars worth of stone.
Yeah. Yep. You got it. It's fun stuff. And then I built something.
Ooh.
But I don't think I've even shown you. So I built a Lazy Susan, which I'd never done before. So here it is.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's a Lazy Susan. So it's got like the Lazy Susan like rotating base and all
Oh,
that.
dude.
But it's like a slice. It's called a cookie. So that when you cut a slice out of a tree like this, it's called a cookie. So this is actually the trunk of the cherry tree that was in Rachel's front yard when she was growing up as a kid. The tree was starting the tree was starting to die about 10 years ago. And, her dad asked me to help take it down. And, it was really good cherry wood. And so I've just been keeping this like large tree trunk. It's not huge. It's like this big in diameter, but it's like maybe 4 feet of it. And I've just been hanging on to it for like a decade. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And my aunt asked me to make her something and she wanted a Lazy Susan. And I was like, well, actually, this is about the perfect size. She wanted like a natural edge. She's got all this kind of rustic furniture. And I was like, well, I could make you one out of Rachel's childhood thing. So it's kind of cool. Maybe I'll make one for our house. But this one's going to go to my aunt.
No, make a second one, dude. That's fantastic.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's kind of fun,
So is that did you lacquer all the way around that thing or seal?
Well, I kind of left it. So the bark is really tricky, and it's like, it's real bark. You can like flake it off. Mm-hmm. I left the bark as is because that's going to basically protect it. But I did do like an oil wax varnish on the top here and on the bottom as well. But yeah, and she wanted the cracks. Like, there's stress in the wood, so when you slice it out like this, it's pretty much going to crack. That's hard to avoid. But it didn't crack too bad, and she liked the rusticness of it, and I was like, okay, cool. So it was mostly cutting it, sanding it.
That is so cool. Did you just buy a Lazy Susan plate from?
Yeah, you buy like Lazy Susan hardware, so it's just got like ball bearings in there.
How about that?
And it's got two metal parts on it that have ball bearings in between, and then
that is so awesome. That would be perfect for like condiments, salt, pepper, napkins, and stuff like that.
Exactly.
That's fantastic, dude. That's really awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. It's like getting to do fun woodworking stuff like that. So like when it's rainy and like really crappy weather, and I just literally can't work outside, I'm like, all right, I'll go make something out of wood. So anyway.
I shall call it Susan.
That's right. Well, 30 Rock deep cut on that one. All right, and there you go. That's what I've been up to. So me and Drew, what's happening? The answer is plenty. All right, everybody, that's what we got for this week. Pushing 2 hours, Drew, as a trend. I don't know, man. Everybody seems to be digging it, but we're not trying to go long. We even cut some segments out, but we just keep on talking. So anyway, as long as y'all like it, it's fine. YouTube likes it. We like it. Y'all like it. Everybody wins. Please leave us feedback on how we're doing. Let us know in the comments. Ask us questions, etc. Without you all, we would just be two weirdos talking into cameras. You can check out gouletpens.com for all of your fountain pen, ink, and paper needs. Be sure to like and subscribe to YouTube, Instagram, all these places where we are. If you're listening to the audio version, you want to email us, you can hit us up at pencast@gouletpens.com. And I have a random fact for you, Drew, to finish out the day.
Are we going to end on a biscuit?
I don't know, maybe. Yeah,
not cool. Maybe not a biscuit.
Day-old biscuit, maybe. It's not like my most interesting fact, but I just pulled it out. It's
I'll eat it. Bring it on.
It's truly a random fact.
I'm hungry. Talking about all that jambalaya.
So I've always been curious to, if you walk across the street, not at a crosswalk, it's called jaywalking, at least here in the U.S. And I was like, what does that even mean? Does that, like, sometimes you use these expressions and you're like, where does that come from? What does that even mean? I don't use that in any other way. So apparently Jay used to be slang for a foolish person. And so when the pedestrian would ignore street signs, they were considered a jaywalker. They were basically a foolish person crossing the street. And that's where the term jaywalker came from.
I really like that. I kind of wish we could change it to stupid walking and shame people for not using the crosswalks any longer.
You foolish walker.
Yeah, I like that. There was at least one or two comments about the origin of bar none, since we mentioned that last episode.
Yeah.
And I kind of glanced over them, and they still didn't make a ton of sense to me.
So a lot of those things, like, they're not 100% sure where the origin comes from.
I mean, no, they seem fairly confident. I think it was my own ineptitude failing to understand it, but
Fair enough. Well, I guess you are a Jay Walker.
I felt like a Jay. I felt like a Jay.
A Jay caster is what you are in that instance.
I wonder if maybe that's why they called it a blue jay. Maybe it behaved obnoxiously. I hear blue jays are pretty mean.
Blue jays are mean.
Yeah.
Like
foolish.
we have some blue jays. They are punks. They will come and just like knock other birds off our bird feeder, and they're aggressive.
I've heard that.
I also saw a woodpecker. This is little bonus footage here. So I saw a woodpecker. There is apparently 23 species of woodpecker or something like that. The one that we have is called the pickerel something woodpecker. I forget exactly what it is, but it's basically the largest one. And, I've talked about like, oh yeah, my trees just like randomly fall down. Where apparently these woodpeckers are quite large, and they are known for pecking trees and weakening them, and sometimes trees will actually like split in half and like fall. And I'm like, I have that happen a lot around here, and lo and behold, there's a lot of trees I have that have woodpecker holes in it. So I think I've got some like older pines and stuff like that get a little older, maybe aren't at their best. Some bugs get in there. The woodpeckers go ham on the bugs. And these are big woodpeckers. They grow 16 to 19 inches tall. Their wingspan is about 3 feet. Like, they're big.
Oh my God.
This is a big bird. And he's out there like whack, 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 whack.
A lot of them are protected species too, so you can't really do anything about them.
Oh yeah, I'm not trying to like do anything, but
we had one drilling holes in our home one time in our rental house. It was a wood siding house.
Yeah, see, that's not good.
It would punch holes right in the siding.
Yeah, see, that's what you got to be careful of. But no, these ones are all in the woods. But I'm like, that might help explain why I have so many trees that fall.
They know you enjoy cutting them up. And they're like, hey, let's do this guy a favor. He likes cutting down fallen trees. Let's give him some more.
Yeah, they're like, I'm helping this guy. No, they don't know. They're birds. They're oblivious. They're just trying to get to bugs. I get it. They're just trying to eat. Everybody's just trying to eat. But anyway, bonus footage. Turkey hammock.
Hey, hammock zone.
All right, everybody. Have a good one. We'll catch you on the next one.